Nobody thinks. Whatever. Really? You don't think? Have you read the Bhagavad Gita? No? Okay, then you're not the one. How many of you think like that? Nobody is honest here. Everybody is dishonest people. Really? You don't feel that, some of the things get repeated? Or Prabhupada is saying the same things again and again? You feel like that, right? Now, why when we read Bhagavad Gita, why it is not having that impact in our heart? What is it that, that we are not doing right? That, the Bhagavad Gita is not able to cleanse the heart. Anybody wants to take a guess? We have read Bhagavad Gita, all of you said, but still the mala, the contamination or the impurities in the heart is not going. What could be the reason? Not serious? Huh? Not having complete faith in the Acharya? Okay, good. Not being attentive? There is one very critical point, very, very, very vital thing. And if that vital thing, if we are not doing, Bhagavad Gita will not have an impact. Some of us, we struggle to chant. Some of us, I was seeing, even if the person is assigned to chant, some word which is very difficult at that time, including me, I was also finding it some difficult. I was tired towards the 18th chapter, but they will keep Sri Bhagavan Vachalo Nishtha Pura Prokta Jnanam Yogena Sankhya Karma Yogena Yoga. Somehow we chanted, right? We somehow chanted. Some of us are able to chant better, some of us are not. But is that the criteria? If somebody is able to chant the verses properly, is it that for him Bhagavad Gita is going to act or cleanse his heart, and for others it is not? No. Why? We have to have Prabhupada and Krishna in our heart. I just want to tell, because I've been given very less time, and I know you're all tired also, and we will have prasadam, you're all waiting for this, but just pay attention to this one thing. Very, very crucial, very, very important. Throughout Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is addressing Krishna with different names, and Krishna is also addressing Arjuna with different names. It is not only, Arjuna Uvacha, or it is not, Krishna is not saying only Arjuna. He's sometimes telling Partha, he's telling Kaunteya, he's telling Bharatarshava, so many different words. There is one word which Krishna uses, and that is the key. I'll tell you, I'll chant the verse. You have to guess which word Krishna is using here for Arjuna and what is the significance of that word. This is in third chapter, third verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Dividha Nishtha Pura Prokta Maya Nagha Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. What is the word used for Arjuna? You don't know. I know that you don't know. Partha? Where is Partha in this? Who said Anaga? Okay, good. Good. So the word which is used by Krishna in this verse for Arjuna is Anagha. Anybody knows what is the meaning of the word Anagha? Sinless. So it's a very, very crucial point. Critical and crucial, I want to say it together. If we want the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to purify our heart, we have to be sinless. If we continue doing sinful activities, those people who say, Prabhu, I don't remember, yesterday I read something, today I am reading something, it is all looking the same, or the purports are appearing same, it is because we are still continuing to act sinfully. The sinful activities in our heart has not come to an end. Here this verse, it is telling, Lokesmin dvidha nishtha pura prokta maya nagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. When we become completely sinless, and when we read Bhagavad Gita, when we stop doing our sinful activities, we can see the subtle differences. Like material knowledge, if you want to acquire in this world, you need to have some qualifications. Not that anybody can go and learn anything, like, as kids. You can't put them in some PhD class. They will not understand anything. You need certain qualification. For the transcendental knowledge to act in our heart, For the transcendental knowledge to cleanse our heart, we need a qualification, and the qualification here is given anagha. We have to become sinless. Otherwise, the subtle differences, because it is telling jnana yogena sankhyanam, karma yogena yoginam. This path, the two paths lead to the same destination, but there is a subtle difference. Unless we are sinless, we will not be able to see the subtle difference. This word is also used by Krishna in at least in two other places that I know while we were reading. One is there in the 14th chapter, 6th verse, where he's telling Tatra sattvam nirmalatvad prakasakam anamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga. As long as the lower modes of material nature are acting on us, we cannot, our heart will not become inclined towards transcendental knowledge. It's impossible. So that is why tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakasakam anamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga. Only when we become free from the influence of the lower modes of material nature, rajas and tamas, that we come to sattva guna. And becoming free from rajas and tamas is nothing but becoming free from sinful activities. Then one comes to sattva guna, and only when one comes to sattva guna, this transcendental knowledge can enter in our heart. Otherwise it is not. I may chant very nicely, I may memorize verses, I can do all of those things. But if I have to understand the intricacy, the fine, subtle things which Krishna is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita, first and foremost, I have to look into my life and see if I have become completely sinless. If I have not become sinless, this knowledge will not penetrate. This will not go through the heart. It will appear, I am Bhagavad Gita padha hu, I have read, I've been reading, but nothing is happening. This is the reason. And there is one place, again, where Krishna mentions this word anagha. Anybody wants to guess where it is mentioned? Huh? 9th, no. Which one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I already told. So which all chapters I mentioned? 3 and 14. Okay. There is one place where Krishna is mentioning that, and that is a very crucial point, very critical point. Remember this. You can go and read this because this is something which, we have very short time. Otherwise, Bhagavad Gita is so profound, so impactful, so deep. If we just hear even one chapter, it can remove so many ignorances from our heart. But remember this, okay, before I say which verse is this or which chapter it is, how many of you think you are intelligent and how many of you think you are stupid? How many of you think you are stupid? You are stupid? Really? Did you hear the question? How many of you think you are stupid? So you see, there is murkha, gadha, and the opposite of that is buddhiman. How many of you think you are buddhiman? I don't know. The question is very simple. Do you think you are intelligent or do you think you are mudha? How many of you think you are mudha? Wow. That is actually politically correct answers. Every one of us, we think we are intelligent. None of us think that we are mudha. Is there really anyone who thinks that I am mudha? None of us. But very interestingly, Krishna in one place in Bhagavad Gita gives the definition of who is buddhiman. That is the clue. Which chapter, which verse? The answer is 15th chapter, last verse. Pay attention. Iti guhyatamam sastram idam uktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. This is the last verse of Bhagavad Gita of 15th chapter. And Krishna is telling iti guhyatamam sastram. There is a code. It's like, you can't access this file just like that. It's not accessible. Bhagavad Gita book is there with everyone. Bhagavad Gita people also read on their own by many times, by different ways. They go through from this side, from that side, from this thing. But they miss out the crucial point of what Krishna is trying to say. Or they don't have the code to access this information. Why? Because Krishna himself is telling, iti guhyatamam sastram. This is the most confidential knowledge. What is the most confidential knowledge? It's very interesting actually. Before this, he says about Kshara and Akshara. There are two kinds of people. One is fallible and the other one is infallible. And there is a third person who is Purushottama. And there is a connection between Kshara, Akshara and Purushottama. But this knowledge is very, very confidential. Very confidential. And to access this knowledge, iti guhyatamam sastram idam uktam maya nagha, one has to become sinless. Sinless is a very, very important thing. Actually, some of us, we still have our sinful tendencies. We continue doing, all the unwanted things, and we expect that this knowledge also should act in our heart. I should be able to understand, and this knowledge should be revealed in my heart. It will not work. Iti guhyatamam sastram idam uktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. This comes in the end of 15th chapter. If you have not read even the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling, if you just read this, 15th chapter also is the smallest chapter. I mean, it has got 20 verses. 12th chapter and 15th chapter both have got 20 verses. If you just read this first 19 verses of this chapter, if you just go through this, etam buddhva buddhiman syat. Krishna is telling he's buddhiman, he's very intelligent. Kritakrityascha bharata. Very important chapter actually, very, very powerful. Not just here, even if you see the 7th chapter where Krishna says why we are here in this material world, and he gives a solution how we can get out of this material world. What is the verse that he says? Esham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. Sometimes people come out of some interest, some curiosity, some pious credit, they want to take up to this process of devotion. But you see, many times they are not able to do it in a fixed way. Why? Esham tu antagatam papam. First thing is the sinful activities that we are doing in our life, there should be a full stop. It should come to an end. People who are not interested in transcendental knowledge, you don't have to be a great astrologer or great scientist to figure out that they are still indulging in sinful activities. It's but obvious. When we continue doing that, and also want to learn this or also want to understand this spiritual knowledge or transcendental knowledge, it will not work. So yesham tu antagatam papam, when we bring full stop to all our sinful activities, jananam punya karmanam, and we accumulate pious credits, spiritual pious credits. Te dvanda moha nirmukta, they become free from the dualities of this material world. Bhajante mam dridhavrata. Krishna is telling they worship me, they engage in devotional service with fixed determination, dridhavrata. Our determination will not be shaky, it will not be wavering. If we do that, esham tu antagatam papam, if the sinful activities, if it comes to an end, jananam punya karmanam, and we engage in devotional activities, then we will not be shaky. To conclude our time together, what is the most important verse as per you in Bhagavad Gita? What do you think? Let's say some new people. What is the most important verse? Vidya Mataji. पूरा बोल रहा है. Huh? Very good. Actually, this assurance, this verse, I don't know how many of you have read this, 18.66. She just mentioned, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaisyami ma sucha. The material world is so designed and created that we are bound to go through so many perplexities of life, so many material difficulties. And on our own we struggle, we try to find solutions, we don't find solutions, what needs to be done, how we'll come out of it, we have no idea. But here is one assurance, not from any normal, ordinary person like one of us, who has got this material body, it's an embarrassment, but by the Supreme Lord. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaisyami ma sucha. Don't fear. You don't need to, go through all these material problems, anxieties, miseries, perplexities in this life. Just surrender to Krishna. Actually, as long as we are not surrendering to Krishna and we are trying to live independently, we will be always having this fear. We will be always having problems. We will be always having these disturbances. Moment I am holding on to the lotus feet of Krishna, there is no fear at all. I wanted to read a very interesting purport, which we just read. I mean, we are doing this Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.5. yaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nartham. What is the last line? 1.7.5 yaya sammohito jiva, or is it bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male apashyam purusham purnam mayam cha tadapashrayam. That is 1.7.5. In that purport, pay attention, this is Prabhupada's writing from 1.7.5. Very, very nice writing. The Supreme Lord descends from His kingdom upon the kingdom of illusory energy, which is the material world, and personally gives relief in the form of Bhagavad Gita, wherein He personally suggests that although the ways of illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. This is the solution. We don't need to struggle. We don't need to go through these problems. And in a chapter previous to this, there is a verse which Sutta Goswami is talking about Narada Muni, and with this we'll conclude. So Sutta Uvacha evam sambhasya bhagavan Narada Vasavi Sutam Amantriya Veenam Ramayan Yayo Yadrichiko Munihi. The translation is, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him. This is the last verse. And vibrating on his Veena instrument, he left to wonder at his free will. You see, what is the highest form of independence? Usually when we chant this Bhagavad Gita, I ask people, what is your favorite verse? Jagan Prabhu, what is your favorite verse? 700 वर्स में एक चूज करना है, कोई भी बोल सकते हैं. No verses? Which one? This is one that she told, but that's not the last verse, 18.66. Sarvadharman Parityaja. Very interestingly, Prabhupada, when he was physically present, he established so many temples all over the world. But in India, he had about more than 5,000 plus devotees, 5,000 plus disciples. But very handful in India. Some 10-20 disciples were there for Prabhupada. Prabhupada, whatever time he spent in India, some time that he spent in Bombay, in Juhu, he used to go for morning walk. And these are all recorded morning walks. There used to be an Indian gentleman who used to come and argue with Prabhupada. Once Prabhupada asked him, have you read Bhagavad Gita? He said, yes, I've read Bhagavad Gita. The question that I asked, Prabhupada asked him, what is your favorite verse in Bhagavad Gita? Anyone wants to guess what he would have answered? Karma? Karmanyavadhikaraste. That's it's a good guess, but he didn't answer that. He had actually read, and he said, Yathaichasi tatha kuru. You know this verse? How many of you know? You are just laughing without knowing. If you know, Yathaichasi tatha kuru. Whatever you want to do, you do. This is, towards the end in 18th chapter, after having spoken the entire Bhagavad Gita, Krishna respects the free will of Arjuna and says, Yathaichasi tatha kuru. So this man said, my favorite verse is Yathaichasi tatha kuru. I will do anything that I want to, and finally I'll go back to Krishna. That is what most of us want in life. There should not be any rules or regulations. There should not be. Why are you telling us to become sinless? I'll do whatever I want to anyway. Whichever path I'll take, it will ultimately reach to the Lord. This is what we want. This is why we want this, because there will be no restriction. We want that, anywhere I can go freely. Narada Muni is able to do this. You didn't realize that when Sutta Goswami was telling that he took his Veena, vibrating on his Veena, he left to wonder at his free will. Imagine how nice life. For us, some of you just came from India, right? How easy it was to come from India. You have to have visa, passport, you have to go through all this process. Then again, when you enter into this country, also immigration, so many things. Then you check everything is done, then only you can enter. Not easy. He is wandering all over the universe, not just from one place to another, one country to another. He's going, all over the place. This is the highest, freedom that one can get in life. In the purport, Prabhupada mentioned something very interesting. Every living being is anxious for full freedom. यथैच्छसि तथा कुरु. मुझे जो करना है मैं जो आया है मैं वो करूं. Every living being is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound up by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth, and what to speak of one planet to another. But a full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's mercy, is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Imagine this kind of free movement is possible. We can actually get this kind of freedom, not being bound up in this material body, in this material world, possible if we surrender to Krishna. But as I said, the most important thing to remember, if we want this transcendental knowledge to act on us, if we really want to awaken our spiritual state, right now we are in this dormant state, most important thing is to become sinful, right? Isn't that? Huh? She's laughing. What do you want to say? Sinful, right? No, यथैच्छसि तथा कुरु. खाओ, दवा के मछली मांस खाओ, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? खाओ, दारू वारू पियो. That's all it is life, right? If we do that, no chance. Forget it. The prerequisite is anagha. If we become anagha, you can try it in your life. You can see how this spiritual knowledge works in our heart, how it empowers us, how it uplifts us to the transcendental position. So I'll stop here and then we'll go to the next activity. Granthra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.